Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Not for Nothing. I am here with Jimmy Litwalk, not actually here. This is the first remote video we're doing, and Jimmy's in Orlando, Florida. I'm not going to have you introduce yourself because if people are watching, I'm certain they know who the fuck you are.
Dude, if they
So,
don't
but you could say hello.
of us like shit talking for the past, I don't know, 25 years, then yeah, clearly no, just change the channel or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. If you don't want to hear it, fucking jog on.
Yeah.
So, I thought it was going to be a good idea to do um, basically do our opinion on
Recap.
conventions.
Yeah, recap.
Yeah, a recap of Hell City. Now, this was supposed to happen like a fucking month ago after we got back from Hell City, but technical difficulties. Like I said, bear with me on this
Yeah,
fucking shit because I'm doing it myself.
life difficulties is what happened. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a fucking nightmare. So
Stories of
so
the
now
town.
we're here. Hell City is still fresh on our minds. Hell City for me has been a convention that I've done it since the second year it started.
Yeah.
And it has always been a highlight of my tattooing on the road. Derb puts on a hell of a convention. And I will admit that I stopped doing it, I think around 2016, maybe. I got to a point where it was just like, as good as Hell City is, it's Hell City, and there comes a point where you want to do other stuff. Um,
Yeah.
and I had pulled away from it for a short period of time, but I mean, shit, I think I did it for like it's got to be close to 8 or 10 years.
I think
You
it was
know,
10 years straight we did it.
yeah. I mean, it was a long time. I did it a couple times with my shop. We only worked it together a couple of times, though. We usually had your own booth or
We
whatever.
had a booth next to each other or we were an aisle away, but it was something that we always kind of met up at. We did do it, it was one of the American shows that I think um we brought either our shop or someone from our shops together into that one because that was Derb had built that convention into, in my opinion, which means dick all, but um, an iconic American show where to me it ranked right up there with when you looked at shows to me when people from out of country or in country or people were asking how did they get into conventions or what conventions they should do. To me, he became one of the top five shows that I felt that as a tattooer you needed to do at least once or attend it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Not I ranked it up there when you looked at like Greensboro, you looked it up there with like Mad Hatters, you looked it up there with like Detroit, you know like when Philadelphia Eddie did that show, and you
Yeah,
look
it's funny. I so that's a good way of putting it because there's a
at
difference.
Philadelphia Eddie show, and then you looked at like Richmond, you know Tony
The Richmond convention,
the
not what
original
it became.
Tony Olivas and Billy show, like those, and you look at it like Atlanta, the Tony Olivas Atlanta shows. When you
Yeah,
look at
I think it's safe to say that, with the exception of probably Detroit, and I'm sure I'm going to piss somebody off by saying this, with the exception of Detroit, um, that convention is like the Hell City convention is still one of the shows that is still being run by the original guy, and it really hasn't lost a lot of its luster. I mean, what other
Detroit.
show?
Well, Detroit started out as Dave Simon and Mario Barth.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know Mario was part of the original Detroit.
Well, the original one, the first one, Dave Simon started, and then back when Mario, I remember that first show, Dave Simon had it, and I remember they brought over like um Bernie Luther and Mario Barth were like some of the and Hanky Panky, Philip Lou, um, were some of the other, and like Leo Zaletta was there. There was like
When the fuck was this? This had to be like
this
this
was
had
when
to be back in like 90.
it
Fuck,
was
that would have been like mid to late 90s.
early, early 90s, and it was held at in Romulus out at the Detroit airport.
Well, that's when the original shows. The first time I did Detroit
Yeah,
was
I
probably 99 or 2000.
I want to say Dave Simon did the first show, and then Dave Simon and Mario Barth did the second show, and I think that's when Dave kind of was like veering away because he had health problems, and that's when I think Tramp, sorry, Tramp and Brian Everett started their Route 66 kind of
Takeover of it.
takeover thing on it, and they held it, I think, 1 year still out at the I want to say it was either like a Marriott or Roseland something. It was like one of the hotel airports, and then they moved it downtown, the actual downtown Detroit.
So I did it a couple of times when it was at the airport,
Yeah,
like when it was down in that area, and that was like that kind of like that show to me was one of the better shows in that time. I mean, and there were a handful. Like I said, Richmond was definitely up there. Detroit was up there. And again, you had those the North Carolina Greensboro was one of those shows, but that was still when it was kind of on the smaller side. You know what
yeah.
I mean?
And
Hell City is, I think, the show that kind of
it was always
Hell City and Detroit kind of broke the bounds and made it bigger, but still kind of kept it. Like, I don't want to say family because that sounds weird, but it definitely had kind of a small time vibe to it. You know what I mean?
yeah, I agree. Yeah, but I mean, again, off topic again, trying to wrangle it right back to it. So to me, what Derp had built for Hell City reminded me of what we would say now is like a lot of the old timer things. But to me, it was really innovative between having the type of artist, the international artist, the variety of artists that he had attend that show. When, back then it was a lot of times it was like, well, these people really didn't come so far past the Midwest, and these people didn't go so, never left the East Coast,
Yeah.
but didn't leave, the kind of their area. Everyone kind of stuck with an area because a lot of people didn't fly entirely a lot of too much. A lot of people were still driving.
Well, I think, especially for Hell City, I think Detroit attracted a lot more of an international crowd.
Well, we had an international airport, so
Exactly,
a lot of
where it's a little bit more difficult to get to Columbus.
people weren't really open minded to have conventions held in uh their hotel. Like they were all right with having a bunch of drunken lawyers and fucking insurance agents there, mess some shit up. But as soon as you heard the word tattoo, you're like, oh hell no. And
Yeah, right,
they
right.
had this was back when tattooing was still kind of frowned upon. It was still very not so open minded. When were looked at upon as like being in industry. Or
Right.
um so there was a lot of like I feel shows that were still breaking barriers to a lot of people being open minded to having things in a facility. This is back when you didn't really find people that did it in like a coliseum thing. It was always done in like
Well,
a hotel down in the convention center in the hotel.
and in all honesty, that to me is a much better show, regardless. I think that's one of the reasons
That's
I
how
still lean towards Hell City over most shows because the fact that it's technically in a convention center, but it abuts like three different hotels.
I mean.
So you're in the hotel, you're in the Hyatt for the most
I
part.
mean, honestly, I can't say it's for all because I mean, there's fucking 900 fucking shows every year, every weekend now. But I don't really know many shows in the United States that still do hotel convention ran shows. There's
Yeah, it's
maybe
funny that you say that because
a handful.
it's true. Even the smaller shows that we've been attending, like Lenore, State Street, um, um, these small town shows where like it's maybe 50 booths, 60 booths. Those now have found cool venues outside of the hotel that are a little bit larger than a hotel ballroom. You know what I mean? But they're technically still not a hotel, which, in all honesty, is cool in itself because it has its own draw. But it does lack the idea of like, and this is going to sound crude, but if you're in the middle of the day and you want to go use the bathroom, you don't want to go on the convention floor. You can go up to your hotel room, and that's kind of a big deal. Like to be able to go upstairs and just fucking decompress for a couple of minutes, pretty sweet.
Because I'll tell you now, like I'm at the age, and I think I've done this enough to where it's like when I'm doing an arena type convention and I've worked all day and I'm kind of worn out. And everyone's like, all right, well, we're gonna go back to the hotel. We're gonna drop our stuff off, or go back to the Airbnb. Kick off our gear, clean up real quick, and then we're gonna meet you out for dinner. By the time I cleaned up, I'm like, I don't want to go out.
I'm the same way.
I'm
I'm
like,
the same way.
I'll catch you tomorrow, maybe for breakfast. Like I'm
Yeah.
okay. Whereas when it was at a hotel and you walked upstairs, you threw yourself down. You came back downstairs. You hung out in the bar. You maybe the bar had a restaurant in it, and it was kind of like you sat down, you had some food, you went back to the bar, and it built this kind of like thing where I think that tattooing is really lacking now, is that kind of like, I don't want to say forced camaraderie, but the interaction between artists and clients was in one place, to where it's like you hung out, you got to see each other after the floor, you talked to the tattooers, and stuff like that. So it kind of engaged with a lot of uh friendships and bonding, or arguments, and rivalries.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like it gave all that kind of like that wild wild west of like the saloon type tattoo lifestyle, where I think that really added to the stories and friendships that came from tattooing. Where now, when it has this thing, it's like high school. It's like, that clique over there hangs out. They go do their thing. They hung out at the same, they got the same Airbnb together. They went to the same restaurant together. They got the same booth together. They went home, drove the same car. Like, it was like, what the fuck was the point of even going?
Well, I think that's
You know?
I think that's where the different where generationally became an issue, because and again, I think it wasn't social media, but it was like the advent of cell phones and easier travels, whatever. I mean, when we used to go away back in the day, it was like you're only going to see this person once, maybe twice. And in order to talk to him, it required a phone call or a letter. If this is before internet, this is before like emails and shit like and cell phones, where
Yeah.
everybody was easily accessible. Like you had to call people at a certain hour in order to talk to them, because you knew that during the day they're working. So you either got to call them early in the morning at home or in the shop, or you got to call them late at night in the shop or at home. And that was a big fucking deal. So when we used to go away back then, it was the only time you connected. Now, not even so much now, but like by like the late 90s, early 2000s, now the internet's a thing, social media not so much. I think you had MySpace and then Facebook, so things were kind of opening up from the social media perspective. So it was a lot easier. So I think a lot of time together was taken for granted, because at that point it was just so easy to connect. Why do you have to wait for a convention, and why do you have to spend every waking moment in the course of 3 days with these people when you could just talk to them in the morning?
Yeah.
So there was, I get that part of it. I totally understand that part of it. But what you were saying before about Hell City, the fact that to be part of that convention was such a grand thing. Derb made a comment when I talked to him on the podcast about how he'd have guys that were like, dude, I've been waiting 8 or 10 years to get in on the show, and I'm fucking super jazzed, and I'm here now. And that's that's kind of cool that somebody kind of stuck around that long, because a lot of people would just be like, fuck it, dude, I don't give a shit. I don't, if I wasn't invited yet, I don't care.
With the amount of shows that are going on now, then yeah, it is being able, it's easy to say that. But when you look at like iconic shows like that, like, it's still like, it's hard to get into Detroit, you know? It's
Right.
hard to get into Hell City. And it's not to say that you're waiting for someone to die at the round table so you can sit out with the adults, but because of the amount of where they've always held it, and it's iconic to where they're holding it at, there's very limited space. Like, I know Derb has tried, like, fluctuating, branching out to some of the little parts of the convention center and the hotel, to where they can, you know, fit maybe a couple of different vendors, or a booth or two in, or he's adapted that kind of painting thing, that painting alley,
Oh,
kind of.
the wet paint project.
Yeah.
That's kind of a Chris Dingwell
Yeah.
a Chris Dingwell thing.
Yeah. And so I understand how he's tried to not make it so big, but try to, like, hey, I got to do something a little bit more different, because after a while everything becomes very repetitive. So
Well,
I
so
think invade or well, not invented, but not, like, like mind going of like trying to add something more on
well,
for
you have to be more creative. You have to
yeah,
innovate. You have to go to the next level because realistically, especially nowadays, because there are so many tattoo shows happening right now that are kind of pushing the envelope. But in all honesty, and again, I'll be honest, I don't think either one of us are necessarily the ones who can talk for everything that's going on in the trade right now because I
no,
don't go to that many shows anymore. You
no.
know what I mean? So what
Even
I wanted,
if
what I
I hear it, it's not gonna fall in everyone's ears,
no, well, but that's what I wanted to talk about. So we went to, so I went to Hell City. The last time I worked Hell City was like, I think it was 2017 or 2018. I think it was 2017. Um, and then I took a year off, and then COVID happened, and everything else, and then I went back 2 years ago just to check it out, just to go there for. I was there Friday and Saturday, and then I bounced out on Sunday as just as I guess a guest just to check it out.
Yeah.
And it was definitely different, and I mean that from the perspective of not being in a booth and not actually tattooing. It's definitely weird. But now we go back in 2020 24, and we're tattooing. So what was I mean, and again, you can either compare it to what it used to be like to what it was now, or just give your basic overall impression of what you felt, how you felt the convention went for you.
Okay, so for me, like I said, the Hell City is definitely one of like if you ask me my, top five, top 10 favorite shows, like, top five in the United States, I can say top 10 in, in the world that I've been to of like attending and definitely fitting right up there with, very iconic and memorable, experience of my life and people that I got to meet and, say that my name is on the same convention banner as theirs. I thought that, there's certain things that I think people really took for granted. And I did, I most certainly did, being very young in my career and then coming up. Um, a lot of the people that I looked up to, like, I didn't take as many photos as I wish I would have. I didn't document a lot of the stuff as much as I would have.
I agree.
Um, so being Hell City is, will always have a place, in my career where I was happy that I can honestly say that I was a part of the beginning years of it. Um, and then just my kind of love hate of for so many years of traveling and everything where I really kind of cut back on doing shows first to start off like cutting back on doing American shows and it really started cut back on doing shows in general because it really burned me out and but it was one of the things I'm really happy that I could say that I remember the beginning years and watch it evolve into what it's become. um but as answering the question of like this year attending, it was kind of weird. And this is gonna sound, same, like a lot of the younger tattooers now are gonna have an opinion of this comment, and a lot of the older guys who've been tattooing, 15 plus years are gonna understand this comment. Um, it was kind of a love hate thing to where it's like I look at it and it's not gatekeeping, but it's like I remember what it was. It's like when people say, "Y'all, you miss home." Like I love Detroit. I love what it used to be, but going back to it, it's like it's not the same place, and it'll
Right.
never be what it is. But I miss and love what it was and what it stood for and what it helped develop me in my life. Now going back to it, do I have that same kind of passion for it? No, but because it's not what it used to be, and then I just have to accept change. In this time walking into that convention, it was really good to see a lot of people that I see on social media. And a handful of, guys who still did, like seeing Marshall Bennett there, seeing Paul Booth there. I always, we talk, if not daily, every other day, and, the friendships that we made between FUD, and a lot of people that I've made friendships with just on social media the first time we actually see them in person, seeing Derb and then seeing Hoffa, guys that I remember doing it in the early years.
Yeah.
And you have like this younger, in my opinion, to me, I'm going to say younger, but I mean, they've been, 10 years plus tattooers, but being that I've been tattooing over 30 years, it's easy for me to say that. Um, Walking the floor this time, I had this weird feeling of like, man, I kind of questioned myself. It's like, do I belong here? Like,
Yeah,
do I,
that's
if I didn't know Dirk personally, and if Dirk was something else, would I have been invited to this show? I just kind of felt like, like I don't, it's like you kind of, question your stability or your,
whether or not you're part of the club.
yeah,
Like for the
it,
longest time, Hell City was you were part of the club. Like you belong there because the individuals that you were, the other individuals that work in the show were also had some like legacy behind them. They've been tattooing for a certain amount of time.
yeah,
They had made a name for themselves in the magazines and in just in general in the industry, you know. And now we've already made our name. We're old. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like we technically do belong there, but very few of us are still there. Bob Tyrrell wasn't there. Fucking, a lot of
Weird,
the older guys weren't that we.
weird to not see Bob there,
Yeah,
Um,
it is strange to
it,
not
it
see
was
certain
weird to not
individuals.
a few faces there, like it was just, there's a lot of guys who recently have kind of moved and passed on,
Oh, I mean,
uh,
shit. That same weekend, Joshua Cartland passed away.
yeah,
You know,
to not see, to not hear stories about that, so I don't want to say it's like, I can see the passing of the torch because I think everything just lit on fucking fire.
thank you. That
It's not,
perfect, fucking perfect. Everything is on fire. We dropped the torch
in
like
full
fucking
blaze.
15 fucking years ago, and it started a fucking forest fire, dude. That is a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
That is a perfect way to put it because that is exactly what has happened. We are no longer looking at one individual like carrying the fucking torch and a bunch of people following him. It is a bunch of people on fire, hair on fire, fucking naked, running, trying to keep up with the fucking fire at this point
I
because
mean,
it is just
you,
out of control.
you remember going there, and I'm gonna use Hellsing as an example, but when you would watch and like, dude, that's Guy Atchison doing biomechanical, like holy
Yeah.
shit, like that guy's got it down, like he did that book, and then you seen guys like, a little bit up and comers like Ron Earhart that came out and he was like doing that thing, and and you looked at like some of the guys that like Marcus Pacheco and those guys coming over, and you still see people doing that kind of style, but it's like you knew Guy for that particular thing.
Yeah.
Then Paul was there, and then Bob was there, and then Dino Cook. Like you had these guys who like made names specifically, almost like it was like looking at like a music venue. It's like it was
Yeah.
like a version of like the Work Tour. It's like we had so many different kind of genres of bands and so many different genres of styles of tattooing.
But then
That was the guy.
But then, like the Warp Tour, you had guys like Chris Blinston, Nate Drew. I'm drawing a blank on names, but you had a lot of guys who came several years after us and after those guys that literally were just doing phenomenal fucking work, and they literally just kind of like they just slid in. It's like they belong there. It's like they should have always been there, but if it weren't for the fact that other people moved on,
Dude,
they wouldn't have gotten the spot.
I can tell you when I remember that statement hitting more home than I had ever realized. Um, I came up to this is back when I think Hope Gallery just opened because I think you guys had just left Dark Side.
Would have been 2000, 2003.
Yeah, and there was a young, nerdy of a little kid, but super polite, but didn't talk fucking at all. Had super quiet, but a kid by the name of Nick Baxter.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He
He came out. He came out of Dark Side.
guys, and when he started tattooing, and it was like I think it was like some of his first maybe 10 tattoos. I looked and I was like, dude, how many years this guy been tattooing? Like, holy shit, why have we never heard of him? You're like, dude just started. You're like, no way. There's no way.
So this is where I'm going to come off as being a total douchebag. When I met him, he was at Dark Side, and I had started renting booth space at Dark Side, and these guys were jocking him so hard, and I'm like, why are you guys jocking this guy? He is nothing he's doing is technically good. he is pushing envelopes, but he has no idea what he's doing. And again, Nick, if you ever watch this, this is not meant as a shot. This is just me making what I said to people at the time, what I said is the fact was he's not all that. And if you build this guy up now, you are crushing him for later. And at that time, it didn't matter because that's what everybody did. If you did something slightly out of the box, because we saw that in our careers, we didn't do anything that was normal to what was tattooing, which is what blasted us forward. But I think the difference was we didn't take the leaps that somebody like him did because we didn't have somebody going, just go for it, dude. Shoot for the fucking stars. We had guys going, dude, if you shoot past the horizon, I'm going to smack you down. Because there were rules back then. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I remember looking at stuff that Nick was doing and being like, whatever, dude. And this wasn't jealousy. This was just me being like, why are you guys pushing this so hard?
Yeah.
Everybody in Darkside was phenomenal. You had Lou Jacques, dude, Eric Merrill, you had Julio, you had fucking
shop that had its own style.
Right. You had a shop, dude, you had a shop that literally put New England on the fucking map. Like Darkside in Connecticut literally created an entire thing for the New England area. Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, fucking New Hampshire. You know what I mean? It all just blew the fuck up. You know what I mean? So to have somebody like him come in, which was great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking Nick's work, but it was thin. And I mean, living here, I see the stuff from years back. Some of it was good, some of it's not. You know what I mean? And again, this is not a shot. This is not a knock. But it was one of those things. It's like someone needed to tone it down.
Yeah. But like with Darkside coming out, like I remember there was like, you had East Coast, West Coast, then like a couple of states that kind of fell into like a weird in between, which was, predominantly slightly traditional, geared towards maybe either going realism or kind of what we thought was new school. But you had that kind of, to me, it was like that Texas had developed its own traditional style. Like to me, Texas developed what we call now is like that neo trad. Yeah. Like you had Deep Ellum, like that whole area was putting out its own style. And I think it was like just an influence of, you had like Frank Lee, Boog, you had Eric Inkland, Dennis McPhail was going down there. Yeah. Oliver had his shop out there, and you had, like all those guys, Sam.
Oh, dude, you had Richard Stell.
Oh, had Richard Stell, like, and yeah, dude, like his Panthers and everything, like he was doing back then. So, like, he, what I looked at like Richard Stell's Panthers, and to me, then it became like looking at, Mike, doing.
Right. Richard was an icon unto himself for the area in which he lived. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I guess, you go further out or you look deeper, you can look at Dave Long, which was a huge influence on someone like Stout.
Chris last name, I mean, dude,
Chris Trevino. Chris Trevino, who basically came in.
Person who has, unless you go to like China nowadays, but tell me another person back then who had not only like a couple of back pieces, but he had a photo album full of like back pieces and bodysuits. Like
he was a cat that embraced the style, the culture so heavily.
Good, and he did it good.
Yeah, and he crushed it. He crushed it. And again, considering how my introduction to Chris's stuff back in the day was more of like a new school, old school style. Well, and then all of a sudden it went mad deep traditional.
We called it Texas traditional because nobody else was doing it like that, Yeah. And to me, they had their own style. And then you started seeing those things, and then when you looked at, we had Detroit, and we were doing a lot more of the hot rod pinup. So it was kind of like, a lot of that stuff that like Little Vinny was doing, Dave Wall was doing, Randy Muller was doing. You had kind of like that kind of still kind of hot rod rockabilly kind of stuff was still in, and everything was on either it was on flames for some fucking reason, and everything was chrome.
Yeah.
But that's just what we did,
That was like mid 90s, late 90s kind of stuff.
And, And, Detroit and Ohio, we're not really Midwest. We're not so far to be called, East Coast. It's just that weird, its own little thing. You
But
know,
look at the amount of talent that's located in that area. You know what I mean? Like, so again, I think it's just these areas that blossom. Now it's just a field of wildflowers. I think that it's beyond certain cities
yeah,
that really kind of created something. Now it's all over. But
yeah,
back then it was like these little pockets that you would find. Like you would travel from one city to another, and you'd have to maybe travel a few hours to get to that. Or and the same thing with conventions in the same manner. But it was now it's across the fucking board. You know what I mean? And again, we're seeing that with conventions. Conventions aren't reliant upon being in major cities. Now they're being like, oh, well, instead of being Columbus, we can, and I can't name another city in fucking in Ohio that does like Dayton. You know what I mean? Like you have shows happening
Cleveland
in
used to.
smaller cities.
Rowdy used to do that show in Cleveland. That was pretty amazing, man. I remember that before he had a heart attack. Like
Right.
that. But climbing back out of that rabbit hole of what we, why we jumped out about the styles of how we branched out on. So walking the floor, Hell City this year, it was one of those things that just kind of just like, man, like I see at a certain point towards like, people like, oh, I don't think of yourself that way. It's like, but you're dumb to think that there's not going to be an evolution of things, and to see the evolution of the tattooers that were on that floor, um, it was it was it was cool, but it made me question like, uh, you know, but then you walk around, you see some other stuff, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm good.
Well, so getting back on Hell City, as far as conventions are concerned, like to me, I got there a couple of days before. I did the podcast with Derb 2 days before, and then I hooked up with Thud in Dayton a day later,
Yeah,
and did the podcast with him, and then went back, and then we hooked up together on Thursday. Friday at the convention, to me, everything with Hell City had what it had. You know what I mean? Like it reminded. It was like every time you go to Hell City, it's like stepping back in time.
yeah.
It's exactly what you expect from a Hell City convention, in my opinion. I will admit there were minor differences, and I shouldn't say there were minor issues. You know what I mean? Wasn't as busy as normal. The fact that there was a huge concert thing happening, a 3 or 4 day festival
Yeah.
happening in Columbus, a few miles from Hell City, to the point where it affected Uber Eats and a bunch of other restaurants in the area. Like people were getting shit canceled because everybody from the concert were ordering food to wherever hotels they were staying at,
But
and it fucked over the entire city.
you got to think too, like it's hard to compare. Like I don't think any shows, and again, this is just being honest. I don't think any shows, other than me being selfishly, think I'm like, oh my god, this was so amazing. Now there's times where I'm like, I've had an amazing time. I really had a great time, but it's hard to really pull off something to where everyone walked away so happy. But I think that's only because there's so many shows now. The allure of it, the mystique,
Oh
the
fuck yeah! But
it
that's my point with Hell. That's
eternal,
my
you know.
that's my point with Hell City is the fact that Hell City still manages to fucking pull it off.
Yeah,
Overall vibe every fucking year that I've been there. Every year I've been there, it's pulled it off. My issues come from the fact that I remember doing that convention, and if you left your booth to use the toilet, it would take you 20 minutes to get to the bathroom. It could take you a half hour to get back
yeah.
because the aisles would pack that much. Now it's not so much anymore. It's like, and again, I'm not blaming Derb. I'm not blaming anybody.
Look, but
It's the
look,
times we're in.
is going on top of that same weekend.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's my point. It's everything has changed.
Yeah.
Everything has changed from that perspective. So where do we go from here? Do we just continue to complain, bitch, and then not take part? Because that's the direction I'm taking.
I
I'm
mean,
literally going to complain.
no matter
I'm
what
going
that
to bitch.
no matter what that answer is, we're still going to do that. So
Yeah,
pension complaints, no matter what. I think
yeah.
at a certain age, it's like get your Denny's, argument card. You're allowed to fucking complain about everything.
Well, I agree wholeheartedly, and I think that's part of the reason I'm leaning more towards the smaller conventions.
Well,
Like,
what do we do? In my opinion, I think this is what, and this is where it's like people really have to really kind of just, quit being bitches and just, hear the criticism about it, and quit being offended. I think we don't need to have a promoter having 400 conventions. You know,
Yeah,
we
I
don't
get.
we don't need to have a state that has 5 conventions in that same town. Like that's just shitty to the community and the people. Like put together one good thing. And I'm not saying that people don't deserve to make their own conventions. Like, hey, I get it, but when you lose sight of like having the artist attending, in the people coming through the door, best interest at hand, other than just lining your pockets, like then you don't deserve it, in my opinion. Like
Agreed.
fucking move on. Like
I would like. I
go
would.
to a punk show or fucking start a weed thing or something. Like just do something else, man. Like I feel like that like we don't have there's no lawyer, there's no officer, there's no one policing the industry or something like that. But at a certain point, like I think the integrity of what is allowed to happen for longevity to help allow this
Yeah.
industry going, like we gotta actually just come back to just giving a fuck, you know.
Yeah.
And it's not saying like who doesn't deserve to care about what, like you're allowed to like what you like, but I want you to stop and pause for a second and just step back and look at it like again, and this is gonna sound stupid, but a lot of times when I stop doing certain shows is because I looked at it like, dude, I've done this so much, give someone else another chance.
Yes.
Like, hey, I've done this 5 years in a row. There's probably, there's only so many people that can fit on the floor. I gotta step out, and I'll do another show, and another artist who's wanted to work that show gives him the opportunity. So
I agree.
like I just felt like not doing it, and it wasn't because I didn't like the people. Because a lot of times the people that I talk to, or the people that I would have met, I can meet different people at another convention. And I don't need one every weekend. Hell, my personal life doesn't need one every weekend. My family life didn't need one every weekend. Just my own mental stability didn't need one every weekend. I just feel like, a handful would have been great. But now we're to the point where it's like there's a handful every weekend. And
Yeah.
no one cares. And it's not like, and again, credit to Hell City, credit to Detroit, credit to like those shows like that where you put on a show to where you've had a formula, and I don't know if it's because it's geographically, the people you bring in, or the people behind the scenes who bust their ass that no one gets to know about, that just make everything run smooth, like the workers and stuff, and the hard work that it takes to actually put on a show is
Fuck
crazy.
yeah.
And a lot of those guys don't get on the back, but they've got a way to where you look down and you're like, dude, this is a well-oiled machine. And it's going to have, good and bad years because that's just, life.
It
But
is. Yeah.
the fact that they're still going is like, man, like, what was that formula? Like, what didn't you change that allows you to have that kind of like stable feet underneath you to keep that thing climbing and rising? And you look at certain shows and you go there and you're like, why in the fuck is this even open this late?
Well,
Like
dude, look at that show. That
now,
show. That.
shows now when it's like, hey, did you go to that show? Or did you anyone went to the show? Like, yeah. Half the people I know left on Friday night. And you're
Yeah.
like, dude, that would have been the most. It was disrespectful to leave the floor before the floor closed
Yeah.
at a convention. Now you got guys who are showing up, and halfway through the day on Friday, when the floors didn't even open till probably 2, they were like, fuck this, I'm gone by 6. Like,
Yeah.
it's insane to
I
hear that.
mean, we've done
But
that. I mean, I've done it personally. I've done it with one or two shows where I bounced out on Sunday morning because I'm like, fuck this, I'm not wasting my fucking time.
yeah,
Like, to me, this isn't on me anymore. I don't care if I don't get invited back. Like, this is bullshit.
well,
And
that is,
again, look what happened to that guy in Florida. I don't remember where it was. Like, Derb made a big deal out of it because he was Derb from Hell City. Goes to this convention, and this guy shit the bed something awful. And it's one of those things, and if you can't pull it off, don't fucking step up.
and
You know what I mean? Huh?
he's still doing that show.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
the worst part is he's still got fucking dumbass tattooers coming out there. Like, you had somebody like Derb and a handful of other individuals that are respected say this was a load of shit. There comes a point where that guy made all of his fucking money. He did not give any. Nobody got their money refunded, as far as I remember hearing. So why the fuck would anybody take a chance? And that's the problem with this business. Nobody wants to hear. Well, you guys didn't have a good time. I'll have a good time. Yeah, because why? You know something more. You know something we don't.
Yeah.
We were there, dude. Nothing happened. Or I shouldn't say we were there, but they were there, and they came back saying this is bullshit.
Well, dude,
you know what I mean?
And look, this is crazy. Convention's supposed to be like, and I don't want to say the elite, but you handpick. It's supposed to be like an echelon of like people who are good at their style and their craft.
Well, dude, you know as well as I do.
About 1-2 year, even apprentices tattooing convention floors.
Dude, Philly broke the fucking mold.
A 2-year tattooer that don't know shit, but you're working a convention floor. Or say like, hey, I'm an apprentice, and you're like, you have a machine set up?
Dude, Philadelphia, Troy broke the fucking mold on what was right or wrong to host a convention. Because the fact is, when you put in over 1,000 booths for no other reason than you're lining your own fucking pockets, I don't give a shit what kind of convention you think you're putting on. That is a fucking swap meet, dude. That is a fucking swap meet. When the person who's working next to you is literally a full-time barista and she's fucking apprenticing in a shop and she was able to squirrel away enough money to buy a fucking booth at that show, that's fucking bullshit. That is fucking bullshit. When your show is paid for, lock, stock, and fucking barrel, just on the booth sales, if you can give away half of your fucking booths and still fucking bank before the fucking doors open, fuck you. Granted, don't get me wrong. You're obviously an amazing fucking businessman because you've come up with a scheme that you figured out how to make fucking money before the show even happens. Good on you. But that to me is the ignorance of this fucking business of everybody wanting to be part of something. Everybody's like, people talk about that show. It's the most amazing thing ever, or it's the biggest fucking nightmare ever. Now, I don't know. So I stopped doing the show before Troy took it over. Like Eric and Tim went there years ago when Troy first took it over. He treated them like dog shit. And I said, fuck you. We're done. I want nothing to do with you. I've been doing that show since it started, when Eddie ran it, and then when Eddie and fucking Billy ran it. And for him to come in and act like who the fuck you are, dude, if he's the only guy who ever puts on a convention from now on, I will never do another convention. I will never do another convention. And that's just, again, I don't fucking care. I don't know him personally. I've only met him a handful of times. But when you do something like that for no other money than dollars and cents and not give a shit, I could care less, dude. Yeah. I could care less. You know, if there's no heart and soul, not even a little, I don't even expect a lot, because if you're putting on a convention, the fact is things are going to go to the wayside. Even with Helsinki this past year, it wasn't what it wasn't what it was because it's bigger than it used to be. You know what I mean? But the fact of the matter is there was still somebody there. There was still somebody at the head of the fucking ship. There was still a heart and a soul to that convention. Something that is not lost, which was, in all honesty, a joy to see. But that
little bit that, people still care.
Exactly. It's not just about the bottom fucking line. I get it. It's business. Totally understand. I'm about to go to a convention this weekend, or next weekend rather. And I am deathly afraid of how that's going to turn out, because I am taking a huge chance on a young guy who has never done this before. It's a small convention like Lenore. And again, I think that's something worth talking about, the smaller conventions, and the idea that it's more of a, I don't want to say family, but the idea that you're bringing in a small group of individuals that you can't help but make eye contact with every single person in the booth. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, if you fuck up, if there's nobody through the fucking door, unless you squirrel yourself away under a bed, there's no fucking way you're not going to hear it. There's something to be said for that. There's something to be said for putting yourself out there to the point where it's like having a house party, dude. You're having a house party, and if they don't enjoy themselves, or if they fucking, the toilet's clogged, you're going to hear about it personally. This ain't going to be something you're going to be able to tell somebody, oh, go fix that. No, you're going to go fix it yourself. Yeah. That's what we're getting ready to go. And again, I think that's the difference between something like a Hell City and like a Lenore, like a Tattoo Arts Gallery. You know what I mean? Like there's a humongous difference between the two types of shows. They're not the same. They shouldn't be measured the same, but they both have an appeal that you want to be part of.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to be part of the first or the second tattoo art gathering that Chris did in Lenore, as much as I wanted to be part of Hell City back in the day, because to me it was so different to what we were used to with fair size shows. I'm not talking Philadelphia size shows, but like Hell City at that time was maybe 125 booths, maybe 150 booths, where Lenore was like 48, 52. You know what I mean? So it was like a throwback to like the late 90s. And it was like, dude, I want to be part of that. Like that's not something I've done in a long time. And that's what and again, Lenore did not disappoint. Lenore, the first few years I did Lenore, I was genuinely like, this is fucking killer. It's like doing a guest spot in just a giant shop. You know, we're getting off fucking, we're kind of getting all over the place. Maybe we should get a little bit more focused.
And wrangle it back in.
Yeah, we'll reel it back in a little bit. But yeah, Lenore. So again, overall impressions of Hell City. Your thoughts?
Again, changing of the times. I understand it's not going to be ever what it was again, but I'm happy that I did this show. I'm proud of Derb, what he has achieved and still achieves every year. Now, I can't say the same thing for Arizona. I did it a couple of times, and to me, it wasn't Ohio. It's a different thing.
It's a different place, yeah.
To me, it's like a tattoo retreat, just because of being held in the Biltmore. It's a beautiful place out there. Arizona is really cool, but it doesn't have the same vibe like Ohio. And I know he tries his best to bring that same thing out there. It's just a different region, but I think for me, when I hear Hell City, Ohio is what comes to mind, and like to have Derb still do and keep that kind of tradition going. I was happy to say I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, it was a weird feeling of like walking around and then just kind of wondering like, do I need to be here or
yeah?
Like,
I think that's a good
like
way.
there's part of me that wants to stay relevant. Like you got to show your face, you got to do everything. Like because I'm only gonna do so much social media, and you want to play a part. But again, I had to look at it for like the selfish reason of like what I actually missed about conventions and what I love about tattooing is the fact that like my favorite parts of going to Hell City really wasn't the tattoo part. It was seeing my friends, like
Yeah.
hanging out with Fun, and Pepe was there, and you, and I seen Gus. I haven't seen him forever, and then seeing Marshall there, and then seeing Paul actually walking around, But Derb set it up to where like we all worked out together. We all rolled jujitsu early in the morning before he did. Like the guy's got to run a show, but yet he still runs downstairs to train with a bunch of guys. And I look around, and it's like we got like 8, 9, 10 people in there, just having fun. And I was like, dude, this is a great memory for me. And then at night, hanging out at the bar, and it's like this is where you got food and everything. You look at it like, yeah, this is what it should be. It's like I'm talking to people that would have normally just been scattered back into the city, or to the, whatever town, and I wouldn't have seen them again until, walking down the aisle and, giving the, hey, how you doing? So I like being able to hang out with everybody. And then, like, and this is going to sound dumb, but like, you're going to at least have one good meal a night at a convention. And there's going to be one night where your food is completely royally fucked.
Don't even get me started on that. That fucking Saturday night broke me out of my fucking head, dude.
But that happens every time in Old.
No, I get it, but we're at a point. I would like to think that we're beyond that. Like we know we've got literally 20 some odd years.
The fact that you threw an adult tantrum and was like, "Fuck it, I'm going home," and I was like, "I got that free now." I watched Joe.
Oh yeah. Dude, after walking 3/4 of a mile,
you fucking just like fucking I'm darting, and
after walking 3/4 of a mile at 11:30 at night, when I said we're not going to be able to find food, we get there and they're like, "Oh no, we're not serving food." I'm out. I was like, We walk out of the restaurant. Everybody's got their fucking phones, like they're looking to see what's next. I'm like, I'm leaving. I'm going back to the fucking hotel. And everybody's like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm going back to the fucking bar. See you guys there. And I literally walked back to the fucking hotel. So the best thing about it was I got a little bit of exercise in. I didn't eat like a pig. I fucking just walked back to the fucking hotel. You guys did find pizza, and I'm not eating pizza in the middle of fucking Ohio. Sorry.
Hey, the pizza.
Yeah, whatever. It doesn't fucking matter. But the fact is, after 29 years of doing conventions, how we don't know, after a certain hour on a Saturday, you do not even try. You missed your window. Go eat a bag of chips and then get a beer at the bar.
But that's the point. Is like we got to have that story of laughing and watching you fucking just walk off, and having stuff like that is funny as fuck. But having that kind of show, when you look at a lot of shows, and you're like, yeah, we finished out the floor. Let's go back, and you hit maybe a drive-through, or you might have something like you brought on the drive up or the right over. You get a bag of snacks, or you grab some shit, down in the reception area or whatever it may be, or at the gas station, and you sit in the house and you do your drawing for the next day, or you tighten it up and you pass out and you wake up, repeat. It was like no different than just being at home.
Yeah.
Like you didn't see nobody, you didn't hang out, you didn't talk. There was nothing really about it. It's like you went to the thing, you did the tattoo, you came home, blah blah blah. You showered, washed your ass, and then back to the thing. The next thing.
Yeah.
We're having a show like that, and then going, yeah, one of those nights, it's like we're gonna go on a food hunt, and it's gonna be funny as fuck because something bad and horrible is gonna happen.
Yeah.
And then one of those nights, you're like Sunday, we sat down at that shoe hospital, and with a bunch of people.
Still wasn't very good though. Still wasn't very good. It brought me back to our trip to Texas from years ago.
But it wasn't a bad meal. It was a good meal. We sat and talked with everybody. So it was like being able to sit there with everyone.
Which is, in all honesty, you're right. It's
to me, that's what I liked about it. That's what I liked about conventions. So being able to go back to a show like Hell City, knowing that that's what I had loved about the shows in the beginning, and when I looked at it, I still got the experience at this trip. So I like the fact that if anybody's ever wondered what an old convention was like, if you're a younger tattooer or newer generation, you'll see. Go to that show and you'll experience to what we fell in love with about.
Yeah, I agree. To me, Hell City, with the exception of the fact that it is expanding and getting bigger and stuff, is pretty much what it used to be like. It's not changed dramatically. It still has the same family vibe. It's got the same good spirit about it. The fact that it hasn't changed, it's gotten nicer. It looks more distinguished. It looks more finished. It's still got the giant banners, and it's still got it looks like a great floor show. And then the fact that the majority of the people that are on the floor are all fucking, they're not handpicked, obviously, but everybody has to send in a portfolio. I mean, I know people that thought they were going to bring somebody to the show, and the convention, like the promoters, not Durr, but people work for them, were like, yeah, dude, we don't know who these people are. They've never sent us a portfolio. They can't be on the floor. So that's a big fucking deal, Yeah. If I had a down part, and I'm going to have a down part, it's going to be little things like there are a lot more tattooers at it, and the shows are not as busy as they once were. So while Durb is taking advantage of the space that he's got, it's a lot of booths for the space. Everything is spread out a lot. I loved what he did with wet paint. I think the wet paint project being moved to a different area, it's actually grown a little bit bigger, which is kind of nice. I dug on that. And the quality of artists that are in the wet paint project are fucking killer.
God,
yeah, it's fucking amazing. Tremendous, I will admit this. The fucking paper towels. And we're going to get into the fucking supply thing that when we go away. But paper towels were always they were always given away at Hell City. Yeah, when you show up thinking you got paper towels and you don't got paper towels after the first day, that's kind of fucked up. We got 2 rolls of paper towels for the booth. Next day, where I'm like, yeah, so we need paper towels. They're like, yeah, cool, it's $5 a day, or $5 a roll.
$5 a roll.
I was like, fuck off. Like, that's fucking bullshit. Like, I'm desperate right now, but I'm not paying $5 for a fucking roll. If I had known, I would have brought a fucking case with me.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a letdown. That was a bit of a bummer, you know. But again, I get it. You got more booths. You shouldn't have got more booths. You should just supplied more paper towels. All right. So let's get off of that because I don't have a lot of bad things to say about Hell City. Hell City to me has always been a great. It is, to be honest with you, in my opinion, it's probably one of the long-standing best shows in the country. You know what I mean? And I would go as far as to say top five in the world.
Yeah,
Top five in.
I think Detroit.
Um,
Yeah, I think Detroit still ranks and holds it up there with it. You know.
yeah. Oh no, most certainly. That's why I say top five in the country. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was supplies, like, and this is going to be the more technical aspect of this conversation. What you pack for a convention. Everybody always asks me if you go overseas, if you go to another state, if you're flying, if you're driving, whatever, what you bring. In my opinion, if you can drive to a convention, do so because it makes life a lot fucking easier.
Oh,
Like I'm getting ready to drive to
yeah,
what's that?
being able to bring your own chair to a convention.
Yes.
So good.
Yeah.
So
Again, it's not easy. It is more difficult to travel and pack and whatnot. But if you can drive to a convention, by all means, do fucking so. I mean, I like me personally in the States. As long as my drive is not more than 12 hours, I will fucking drive it. And I know that sounds insane, but I personally enjoy driving. I like the time thinking and whatever. I talk to my friends on the phone, whatever. But being able to take a table, a chair whenever possible, and even like a little workstation to work off of. Instead of working off a table that's in the booth, I have a little like IKEA
yeah,
cart
figure
that I
something.
pack with me, which I brought to Hell City, which was great because Jimmy took over. Jimmy had the right hand station, and I don't like working with my back to the person I'm working with. So you technically need a right hand station floating. So to have a cart, and it's a tiny little cart. It's maybe shit. I think it's probably 12 by 18 inches. It's tiny, but it's got shelves on it and stuff, and it travels easy. It's light as fuck. But I bring that to almost every convention now because if I drive, obviously, because it travels so well. So for me personally, my travel kit, with the exception of like the table, and my chair, like, and when I say table, I mean body chair, body table, but my body table, my chair that I sit in if I bring it, which I don't always bring, and the little workstation that I work off of, everything fits in a medium-sized piece of luggage. So I have all my pigments, disposable tubes, unless I'm using a pen. I have a like a Tupperware thing full of ink. Excuse me, needle cartridges. If I'm using my transverse with disposable tubes, then I have to have needles on the bar. But everything I have, including my lamp, will fit in a piece of luggage. And I've actually flown overseas with that same piece of luggage. The only thing I recommend that if you're flying, if you have something like a Brother printer that uses lithium batteries or any other type of thing that uses lithium batteries, pull that out and pack that in with your carry-on because that they will go through all your shit if you have a lithium battery in your fucking luggage. So I recommend trying to pack fairly light, but I pretty much bring everything I fucking need. The only thing I usually pick up at a convention that I don't bring is going to be Saniderm, like sanitary wipes, like Medicaid. The fuck's it called? The antibacterial wipes,
Yeah, that's
and I'll pick up a small pack there at the convention usually, and maybe I usually pack a thing of A&D, a tube of A&D ointment. But if I forget to bring it, I'll pick up some kind of fucking Glide from some company, fucking anything but hustle butter.
but yeah, I think the only thing like the box that I have, I've used for probably the past over 20 years, 25 years. I got it from Jimmy from Lucky's Tattoo Supply.
It's like a Harding case.
Yeah, it's a hard Pelican case. And he made these old armrests that fold up and collapse. I always have that on me. It's a good thing. It's not, you're not doing much more than like a head or an elbow, on it. You're not like putting someone's whole leg on it. It's not that big. It's just a really good, easy, convenient, little easy, sturdy thing to kind of get you through the weekend. Like you're gonna just sacrifice some comfortability of things that if you're flying, but if you have the ability to drive, pack some of the more better things for yourself to make it a little bit more convenient and easy on you and your back, for that weekend. Um, I got a light that I really like. This guy Greg DeHoot has this light picture that he has that's so compact that it breaks down and it's really good. It actually has like a phone charger in it too. Or if you want to plug in a little light and do like a little GoPro or some kind of little video filming thing with your iPhone, sitting off of it while you're doing it, it's got ability to have it plug in so you're not draining your battery. He sells that thing. I really dig that. Um, Only other thing I can think of is it's basically all my same. I try to pack like if I don't want to walk up or rely on anybody. The only other thing that I don't pack really is like paper towels and like bed sheets.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like, so back in the day when we first started doing conventions, I don't think it was until, and it's funny, I'm going to say this, I don't think it was until the first house, one of the Hell Cities that somebody supplied paper towels, water, um, and sharps containers were half and half. Like I remember going away and you'd have to bring all your sharps. And back in the day, we used to bring metal tubes.
Yeah,
So you would pack Tupperwares full of metal tubes. So you'd have to bring the sharps. And 9 times out of 10, we used to use an old fucking soda bottle.
that's not what we do. We just do it like a
Yeah.
mug or a Pepsi bottle and just
Yeah,
type it.
you throw your sharps in the pep, and then you bring everything back with you. You
Yeah,
know,
put a piece of tape around it, right? Dirty.
exactly. Yeah. Oh, dude, I remember the first time I came back from Europe. We had dirty tubes, everything. All of our shit was gone through. Lord knows. Like it's actually almost disturbing. We should have never been allowed to travel like that. It was disgusting. But
My
yeah,
first,
I think Hell City was one of the first conventions that supplied paper towels per booth. And normally you would go to the convention and you'd bring your own paper towels, you'd bring your own fucking water. You'd have everything you needed for the convention. Now it's a little bit more open. Minus the idea of one roll of paper towels for the entire weekend. Sorry, Derek. It's just killing me. It's killing me. Yeah, I mean, if you guys have any other questions, like you can leave a comment in the messages at the bottom, and either Jimmy or I will answer them. No problem. Um, Moving on, like we'll end on this. I don't want to say top 5 conventions, but what are your like? What's the difference between say a European show and like a show in the States?
oh,
In your opinion,
there's a huge difference.
What was the first show you did outside of the country? You went down south first. You went down to South America first, or would you do Europe first?
I think Canada was my first out of country convention. Um, then
Really? I didn't do Canada. I did Canada well after.
yeah, well, I was right there. I mean, Canada was every weekend.
Oh, that's true. You were in Detroit. My bad.
Um, I think yeah, Canada was my first out of country, and then I did a lot in South America. I think Brazil was a lot, and then I did Mexico City, and um, then I think it was I think Europe after that. I don't remember if I did Japan or Europe first. Yeah, I did Europe first, and then Japan, and then
I never did a show in Japan. I only did guest spots in Japan.
guess what we did. We also went down for Moon Eyes. That was really cool.
Yeah, that must have been pretty wild. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And the Japan, they only did it was a 1 day convention. It was they never did like an all weekend. I think the longest they did was a 2 day convention. It was like a Saturday Sunday, but
Nice.
it was usually so when we went there it was only on Saturday. They didn't see some most people don't work on Sundays, and that was it. They could only get the place for Saturday, so it was a 1 day convention. They didn't really. I've never been to a convention in Japan that did all three days.
Yeah, I've never done a show in Japan. My first convention outside of the country was in Lausanne, Switzerland. That was actually my first trip outside of the country.
Yeah.
I just met Alethea back in 97, 96, I think I did Lausanne in 97. And that changed my whole thinking on tattooing. Like I got to meet Philip Lou that weekend. I didn't meet Robert Hernandez, but I worked in the booth. Actually, Robert was the second year I went there. But yeah, Robert, like the amount of artists I met that I was just fucking enamored by, because the only time you ever saw it was in a smattering of fucking magazines.
Yeah.
Blew my fucking mind, dude. And to be on the convention floor working with these guys was just like, holy fucking shit.
Yeah.
So if I had to say, from the standpoint of a life changing experience, I would say, um, this cat Bit, who ran the convention in Lausanne, Switzerland, to me was a life changing experience for me, because it was the first trip to Europe. I was with my girlfriend, who later became my wife, Alethea. Um, I got to work, and I did that show a few times. I did it 2 years in a row, but the first time I worked, I won a bunch of awards for whatever fucking reason. I got to work next to Tintin. Bernie was there. Philip was there. Fucking Robert was there. Uh, Fucking Mick. Like, dude, there was so many fucking tremendous artists. Like, people, I'd just be like, why the fuck am I here? I'd only been tattooing maybe fucking 5 years, 6 years. It was fucking stupid. I was more than 6 years, maybe 6, 7 years. But it was fucking stupid, dude.
My,
And I was just blown away by it.
mine, it probably, I can't say it's not my favorite one that I've ever done, but it is like one that I was just kind of like, I stood back and I was like, dude, holy shit. There's like two of them. European one, I would say it was the second year of London. Uh,
London was fucking up there, man.
able to look on that flyer and see my name there with all those guys, I was like, dude, holy shit. That was the year I got to meet and
We
actually
did.
hang out.
I did London the first year by myself, but the second year you were there. You came with us.
Yeah. And then, being able to say that I hung out and broke bread with Lyle Hardy. Like, dude.
Dude, that was fucking second year of London, and being so
So look,
London.
seeing my name is on a poster with that guy's name on it. You
Yeah,
know, that thing that like bugs, I mean, dude, like really was like, for my era of like growing up, like it was like any magazine that I ever opened up and just looked at, or any book that I ever looked that was from like Barnes and Nobles or overseas or something, just like, dude, man, look at this guy's stuff. It's so awesome, and being able to see my name is like I'm working the same convention as this person, dude. Like
yeah.
it was like that was good. And another one that really kind of, and it's again not my favorite show, but it was just one that kind of like wow was when we did Ink and Iron on the Queen Mary,
Yeah,
and
we worked next to Gunner in that one, didn't we?
we were next to Gunner, but I mean like Gunner was there, but like the bands that were there, like it was like again I'm working a show with all these names, like Bob Terrell, like Tom, like it's basically on the Queen Mary, and then basically you got like one of the biggest like fucking music things, on the West Coast going on
It
out
is amazing to
there.
see.
You're just like,
It
mind blowing.
does blow my mind to see what happened to that convention, because that show, again, I think they overstretched. I think instead of looking at it from the standpoint of like, hey, let's get a handful of bands, let's get a bunch of great tattooers, let's put on a good event. They just kept getting bigger and bigger, and until it eventually blew up. I mean, they moved it to, was it Nashville? And
Yeah.
then the whole fucking thing tanked, or was it? I think it was Nashville, and the whole thing, like the bands got fucked, all that tattooers that showed up got fucked. Like it was one thing after another, and it was one of those things. It's like, great idea, dude, but if you couldn't pull it off, you shouldn't have tried. You just simply fucking shouldn't have tried. But a shame, because it's, again, it started out as such a great idea, such a great venue.
But like being doing that show and seeing my name on that, I think was like looking at it wise, I was like, wow, man, dude, I'm here. And there's other times where I've like just gone to shows and I'm still like, yeah, I work with that. Like even now, I still get starstruck. I'll look through like parts of my phone, and like who, like Stone Cross, because I don't really look at it too much, but like I look down and I see Jack Rudy like the photo of mine. I'm like, dude, yeah,
It's weird, like,
cool,
you know, I always feel like, and I don't think I'm being conceited by thinking this way, but I've always been so concerned about just getting by over the weekend that I don't pay attention to that. And it's not me thinking I belong there. It's not me thinking that, I'm better than what's going on. It's just that I'm so caught up in the moment of just getting to my client, making sure the tattoo is, I start when I'm supposed to start, I do the best job that I possibly can, and worrying about whether or not I gotta get to my second tattoo, that I don't ever consider who I'm working around. You know what I mean? I will admit the one time I was probably most, actually it's been two times that I've been insanely flipped out about who I was working next to. The first time was Corey Miller in California
Dude,
at
he's like the fucking coolest guy, dude. He's just fucking
the nicest guy in the fucking world, dude. And I remember walking, like he was working next to us, and I'm looking like over the booth, and he's drawing a fucking pirate pinup on with a pen, and I'm just like, oh my god, this motherfucker's drawing a fucking pinup on the side of a calf. It's fucking gorgeous. Like I
so
walked away so cracked, you know what I mean? And then the tattoo was done. It was beautiful. He's watching me tattoo later on. He's like, dude, I fucking love your work. I'm like, dude, do me a favor, go fuck yourself. Like, you're fucking killing me. You just drew this beautiful fucking piece on this girl's leg. And it's still driving me nuts that I stenciled mine on. You're fucking complimenting me after I saw you do this fucking tattoo. And that till this day, a matter of fact, the first time I really got to talk to him was, again, recently rather, was maybe 10 years ago. We were talking, and that story came up again. And it's one of those things that is still ingrained in my brain where it's like, dude, that motherfucker is nothing but talent.
yeah.
Nothing but talent. And then there was another year, like maybe a year before that.
Right, and work at Suzanne's place, Suzanne Fowler. I remember seeing Corey's work so long ago, just the way he approached stuff
Yeah.
and you didn't draw that. There was only one other person that I seen sketch on the skin and it just come out that awesome was like Frank Lee. And
Oh fuck yeah, Frank's a monster. He was a monster, you
yeah,
know.
the first time someone was like, dude, you gotta go check that guy's stuff out. And I was like, who? And they're like, I think that's this guy Frank Lee. And I was like, oh, okay. And like, dude does some of the most amazing tattoos. And I was like, I walked up to him and hey man, how's it going? And talking super nice, he's like, yeah, I didn't really know much about him, nothing other than someone just told me his name. And he's got this guy's laying there and he's like kind of like, all right, he's looking, he's got this pen. Dude, he like got this pen, he goes, he grabs the guy's leg, he goes, he draws like a quick circle, a line, he goes, he's like, all right, take a look at that. And I'm like, what fucking abstract shit is this guy fucking doing? And the guy looked down, he's like, all right, man. He's like, do your thing. And I'm like, what fucking thing? Like, he scribbled on this guy's
Like
fucking.
there ain't nothing there.
I'm like, that was like dog shit. Like, are you? I'm like, this guy's got to be fucked up or something. And I was like, I was like, oh, okay, that's what they meant. Come check this guy's shit out. Like, it was a joke, not like, hey, you're really gonna like it. I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And I fucking went back to my booth and I tattooed. And I remember like walking back to the bathroom and stuff. And I walked by and I looked over, and he had this fucking angel holding this guy. And I was like, did I have a fucking seizure? Like, no, that's not what I seen. Like, was that a joke? Like, did he
Yeah.
pencil that on right afterward because it looked way too goddamn perfect. And I was like, no way. So I'm like standing there watching it, and I was like, where's your stencil? And he's like, huh? I go, where's your stencil? Because I seen you just mark some lines on that guy's leg. He's like, yeah, that's all right, how I do it. And I was like, what? And that fucking was like, when's your next appointment? And he's like, huh? I go, when is your next tattoo? I want to watch that shit again. Fucking went back over there, and fuck if he didn't do it again. He just drew one line down this guy's leg and went, and drew three lines across it. Four lines on this guy's leg. And I'm like, all right, where's this going? And fucking dude, Frank puts his fucking head down, did to me, and like ink's flying everywhere like it's a fucking goddamn.
Yeah, he's a trainer.
Dude was not a clean tattooer. He was
No.
shit. Fucking bangs out, draws his devil head on this guy's fucking leg, and it's got like flames and shit. I'm like, there's. It was the most mind blowing thing I had ever seen. I was like, that's that. There's okay. This is different. I thought I knew tattooing. I know nothing. Absolutely.
Yeah,
It was the most craziest thing I've ever seen.
that's amazing. Yeah, I tried to get tattooed by him back in like the late '90s. And yeah, just never worked out, unfortunately. It bums me the fuck out.
Yeah, same. I
It
had
bums me the fuck out.
appointments with that guy, and he can't. And he didn't show up for any of them.
Yeah, I remember Oliver. Oliver Peck's got an amazing story about getting. I think it was his ribs finished by Frank, and I'm not even going to try to repeat it. But I was present in Texas when Oliver told the story to me and a couple other people, and it is a phenomenal fucking story. And it pretty much sums fucking Frank up in a fucking nutshell, dude. And it
Yeah.
was, yeah, it's a fucking shame. It's a fucking shame. Um, all right. Well, I think it's a bummer of a fucking spot to leave off on, but it's an amazing tattoo to leave off on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good spot to stop on. Conventions, fucking working out, like doing our thing, whatever. Thank you very much for coming out or not coming out, but sitting in on this. So, this will hopefully be only the first of a couple that him and I are going to do, over the next couple of, weeks and months and whatnot. But yeah, if there's anything you guys want to hear or see, leave it in the comments and, exactly. And we'll look into that. So, in the meantime, like and subscribe. And, again, thank you very much for tuning in. So, you want to say anything, Jimmy, before I sign off here?
And I always appreciate you guys tuning in and listening to our bullshit rants and all our jibber jab. Again, man, thank you guys for the support and spread the word.
Yes, please do. Spread the word. Like, subscribe.